And the Indiana Pacers are now once again under 500 as they fall 94-90 to the Orlando Magic for their third time this year. They will not play again until April, so thank God for that. But Facci, a lot to talk about here at this game today. I think that the first thing that really stood out to me overall in this game was just Indiana's inability to get timely rebounds and the amount of times they drove into the paint, and Orlando's defense just was basically able there to just wait for everything and reject everything and make every shot difficult. And I never felt like Indiana really got into an offensive flow that we like to see. You look at the previous game, they played 132 points against the Knicks, only 90 against Orlando. I know everybody's talking about how New York made all these defensive upgrades with who they traded for and who they signed in free agency, but I think the team that is the best defensive team probably overall in the Eastern Conference is the Orlando Magic.
No doubt about it. Orlando is as advertised defensively. They made Indiana play their style of basketball tonight. And I think that Indiana, like you said, they never looked comfortable. Orlando came into this game being arguably the top defensive unit in the NBA. They were number one in scoring defense, second in defensive rating. They lived up to the bill. 10 blocks in this game. They forced 16 turnovers. They out rebounded Indiana by 9. And in the fourth quarter, I feel like that's really where they made their difference. They outscored Indiana by 8, but at one point they were on a 29 to no, Indiana had shot 5 of 29 at one point between the third quarter and the fourth, and Orlando just got out to, I think it was either a 10-0 run to start the fourth quarter. It was just really, they pounced on the Pacers in the fourth and came alive, and Indiana just kind of faded away in that fourth.
I mean, yeah, it was like a 20-6 run from Orlando to start the fourth quarter up until like 5 minutes left in the game. Like Indiana was held to just like 6 points in 7 minutes. And I know a lot of people were on social media saying, like, oh, Tyrese Haliburton's got to be better. Tyrese Haliburton has to do this. Look, I understand we've been critical of Tyrese Haliburton, but if you watch this game, he didn't
How good.
have anywhere to go. And when this team cannot get out and run, Tyrese Haliburton can't be the best version of himself. And then you look at the amount of length on this Orlando team, whether it's Anthony Black, Jalen Suggs, a great defender, Jonathan Isaac, who I thought completely changed the game. Tristan Da Silva
Yeah.
is a pretty big guy. You got Goga and you've got Franz Wagner, who were also big in this game as well. Like you just had a lot of size. KCP, they were all just making it very difficult with their length, their wingspan to allow Indiana to get open looks. And they had some, yeah, you want some back, but to me, it was like it wasn't a Tyrese thing because this is just a tough matchup for Tyrese with how much they take away him going right, and that's what he loves to do. Quinn Buckner said it in the postgame show. Tyrese loves to go right and get his team going, but Orlando really did a good job of shutting that down. And I think, Tyrese is not one of those guys that's going to force. He's just never been that player. And when he has kind of forced, it's mostly been from like taking threes and just hoping that he can kind of make up for it that way. But in this game tonight, I felt like, he was a +5 in the game. So I know the stats don't necessarily show it in the box score, but when he was out there, this team was much better than when he wasn't on the floor. It was a really tough matchup. I'm not trying to sit here and act like, this is an acceptable loss, but
Yeah.
94-90 is a very close game. And the fact that they got back into it after having such a slow offensive performance in that fourth quarter was, not the worst thing to me. I thought Mathurin and Siakam kind of stepped up there, but yeah, Halliburton has to be better. Sure, you want to say that, that's fine, but I think this matchup is just really difficult for him, and I think you really felt the absence of your Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard combination because these are the two guys you really need for this kind of matchup.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things to dissect there. One, look, Halliburton definitely doesn't get a pass. I mean, it was, at halftime he had 0 points. He was 0 of 8 from the field. I mean, just a rough shooting night. This is a really tough matchup for him. In all three games, I felt like he's had to work for everything. Last time against the Magic, he had a couple baskets kind of down the stretch, but the first time around, he was almost shut out through the first like 3 quarters basically. So. Yeah, Orlando, you and I were talking about it offline. They're without Paul Banchero right now, but that might actually make them a better defensive team. And I think Orlando really has something going on. You look at for the Pacers, it's just this was not Pacer basketball. I mean, 22 assists, 16 turnovers. That's not like Indiana. And then, it wasn't just Tyrese that struggled. This was also a rough game for TJ McConnell. I feel like the Pacers were never able to get out and transition and just play their style. Orlando did a great job, kind of stifling any type of pick up the pace for Indiana. And I felt like, you could experience that through the team just from Indiana was in front for the first half. It looked like they were playing a good game. Maybe they could hold it on. But there was a couple things like Turner. I just want to throw it out there. Turner, 8 points, first quarter. Great. Finished the game with only 3 more points. Didn't have a basket in the second or the third. I felt like Turner was someone that they took out of being able to make an impact in this game. And it wasn't for Mathurin until he didn't get it going until the fourth. So we'll touch on more of Mathurin later, but it just felt like Indiana in that third quarter to that fourth just really just started disappearing.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where you're kind of seeing that Pacers bench just really not be strong because of all the injuries,
Very.
right? Johnny Furphy had an exciting first half, had 7 points, had his first basket, and then the first play he comes in, he goes in and gets a rebound, and it looks like Anthony Black just slapped the crap out of his hand, and he lost the ball, right? And he's looking at his hand, and it's just like, something's wrong because he keeps looking at it. He's trying to play through it. I think he ended up missing a shot once he caught the ball, but his hand was like just bleeding, like gushing
Yeah.
out blood. And then I think it was like a play or two later, Jarris Walker, his hand almost looked like he had like a dislocated finger or jammed it up real bad or something. It just
Orlando
looked
was
bad.
physical. They were
Yeah.
physical tonight.
Uh,
There was a couple calls. I don't want to start calling out the refs. There was a couple calls that absolutely went unnoticed, I would say. There was
Jalen
times where
shoves.
Tyrese got shoved at one point,
Gosh.
no call. I was like, whoa. I mean, there's good defense and then there's tackling. I think Orlando got away with a couple.
And I think that's just part of the reputation of the Orlando Magic, right? Like you're at home, you're known as this defensive juggernaut. You've got a lot of physical play throughout the 48 minutes. So referees are going to let it be a more physical game because that's how it is. And it got chippy there, especially in that third quarter. Mathurin and Suggs started chatting. Siakam and Goga got technical fouls. I saw this little Pascal Siakam licking his fingers, and I had never seen that before. And people were nicely telling me because I'm an old man at 32 years old that he was licking his chops, right? Goga was over there crying. I know Quinn Buckner was trying to break down what was going on. I was laughing at Quinn breaking it down. But you like that, chippiness. You
I
like
do.
seeing these two teams really get at it. And I'm not saying it's anywhere close to what the Bucks Pacers was last year because Indiana just dominated Milwaukee. But I can see where these two teams can end up becoming a rival over the next couple of years. I mean, they're totally different stylistically. You've got, the head coach of the Pacers, whose assistant coach was Jamal Mosley in Dallas. And there was some reporting that the way he left was kind of ugly. And so, you kind of got that there too. You got revenge of the Goga because Goga always plays great against the Pacers, it feels like. And it just feels like there's a lot of chipping this year. So, and I should mention you got the Gonzaga brothers. And I know Nembhard wasn't available to play in this game, but it's just there is a lot here, and it's like these two teams clearly have seen enough of each other. Playing, Indiana's 11 games, they played 3 already against Orlando. So that kind of also shows you, like, and if you look at Tyrese's numbers against the Magic, it's not been great because of how good they defend him. So I think that does kind of skew his numbers a little bit, but overall, like it's just this is a tough Orlando team. I'm not trying to make excuses, but I think you bring up a great point with TJ McConnell early on there, how he struggled in this game, just 2 and 9 from the field. TJ is a smaller guy, and I think that this is a matchup that is going to be hard for him to have the same level of impact that he normally has, just because if you're not playing fast, he doesn't have the size to shoot over all those long defenders on a night to night basis.
No, it really doesn't. And just someone had a great stat. I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I remember it. It was that in the Pacers' 6 losses this year, Tyrese is averaging 11.2 points per game on about 28% shooting from the field. It's just something where on the losses, like he has struggled mightily from the field. It's not just like, oh, all right, he shot 50%, the Pacers lost. It's really like the first half he's been taken out of the game, and then he's trying to get back in the game, like this type of performance of like a 3 of 14. It's he started 0 of 8, he ended up finishing 3 of 6. So it's like he finished better, but by no means is that what you needed. Against Charlotte, 2 of 11 from the field. Against New Orleans, 2 of 8. I mean, these are games where it's hard for him to be able to make an impact. 0 of 8 against the Knicks earlier, 8 of 18 against Philly. I mean, it could always be worse than that, but he's had some rough shooting displays, but basically, the 8 assists that he had going early on in the first quarter, it was great to at least be getting your teammates active. Doesn't pick up any type of no point or assist in the second quarter. I just felt like this is when Indiana kind of needed someone to step up if they could have like pulled away, because this is a Pacers team that through the first quarter they were up 27-18. It looked like, hey, they're going to be all right. Just one turnover in the first quarter, and then things went in a different direction. I felt like Indiana ended up getting really sloppy. Obviously, that means 15 turnovers over the final 3 quarters. And I just felt like Orlando was able to play their style while Indiana was not able to keep up. And it just never looked like our Pacers at any point. But the one thing I got a big gripe with is Pascal Siakam had been real solid in this game through 3 quarters. He had 23 points on 7 of 10 shooting. It felt like, hey, this is Siakam. He's doing what he does. This is great. In the fourth quarter, he only attempted one shot. It was a 3-pointer that he hit with it was about 7.5 minutes to go. He doesn't attempt another shot. I think it's a big mistake. The Pacers have done this time and time again of going away from Siakam, and in this situation, it's not like it stopped working. It was working.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I was going to actually bring that up here in a second, so I'm glad you did that. So it kind of segues right into my next point that I was going to bring up. So with Siakam, right? He's done this, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 games already this season where he's going really strong in the third quarter and he's got like 20 plus points and you're feeling really confident about his game. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, he just disappears. And it's like the team can't get him the open looks they once got him. They just forget about him. It's like, can we get some more like Boston Siakam where he actually touches
Yes.
the ball when the game's on the line and hits those big buckets? Because that is who he is. He can do that. However, one thing I think we do need to put in perspective here, Facci, 39 minutes for Pascal Siakam. If you would have told me that Pascal Siakam was playing for the Knicks, I wouldn't be surprised because of how many minutes he's playing. I mean, Tyrese played 40 minutes in this game, and the Pacers were +5 in those 40 minutes that he played. So that means that in the 8 minutes he didn't play, they got outscored by 9 because they ended up losing by 4. So I just think that with Siakam, like he looked tired out there. There was plenty of times where his hands were on his hips in the fourth quarter. The Pacers didn't ever really give him a blow. And I think that that is partially why they didn't go to him. He wasn't actively looking to score because scoring is exhausting, especially when you're playing such a physical game against Orlando and the what they were asking him to do defensively. So it's not an excuse, but hey, maybe there for a minute or two, you go to Obi Toppin, you go to Ben Shepherd just for a minute or two, let him get a blow, let him play 37 minutes instead of 39 because those extra 2 minutes could have been all the difference in terms of just getting a quick breather there in the fourth quarter, catch your breath, come back in a little bit rejuvenated. I know Mathurin played 35. Turner once again up to 34 when we're used to seeing him around 28. So a lot of extended minutes now for these guys when you have a thinner roster because of the injuries. And I think it's stacking up a little bit. They've had a lot of games. I know they had 2 days rest. I'm not making excuses, but you could see the fatigue on Siakam out there during that fourth quarter. He did not look like himself, how he had looked in the first half.
Orlando, look, like we said, they're great defensively. Got to tip my hat to them. But yeah, you did have 2 days off. You got to be ready. You got to find something to get him a little bit of a breather. I looked at it. Siakam, 11 shots, ties his season low. 3 different times this season, he's had 11 shots. Pacers have lost all 3 of those games. He needs more shots. That's just how it is. And I felt like when Siakam, when they go to him consistently, good things happen. And actually, I want to pull this up. Okay, so 4 different times this year, Siakam has had.
You're
Okay,
making me laugh here,
four
Facci.
different times this year, the Pacers have had 16 shots or more for Siakam. They're 3-1 in those games.
Okay.
Give him the ball. I mean, think about it. 0-3 when he has 11 shots. When he has 16 or more, they're 3-1. It feels kind of like there's a trend there that, get Siakam the ball consistently, not through 3 quarters, get it through 4. And I think good things will happen for this Pacers team.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that he's shooting so well from three in the early part of the season is just incredible. I know he was at like 44.8% before tonight's game. He goes 4-6 tonight. It's like what he can bring to you. Like he's clearly hitting his outside shots at a higher clip this year for whatever reason that is. So even if you're not posting him up saying, "Hey, go take on Jonathan Isaac," because I think he tried to do it like once or twice and didn't always like end up taking the shot because it didn't like the look and things like that. So There's ways you can get him a little bit more involved. He did it that big three there in the fourth quarter to kind of stop the bleeding a little bit, but it just, it is a little bit of the inconsistency of getting him the ball and kind of making it a priority. And I know the Pacers love to play this random style offense, right? Like that's the big thing for the Pacers. They want to play random basketball, but sometimes they get away from, okay, who's the hot hand, right? I thought they did a great job at getting, the hot hand the ball against the Knicks, but they didn't do it against the Magic tonight. And Haliburton, you said it, he was what, 0 of 8 in the first half? So he goes 3 of 6 in the second half, which is a much better number, but even he wasn't getting good looks. It was kind of like the Mathurin show there to kind of close out the fourth quarter. And I applaud the effort because Mathurin had some nice buckets and things like that. But you gotta continue to have a balanced scoring attack. And I just go back to the minutes. I just really think that played a factor into it, Facci. And the minutes might have been a factor for Miles Turner because he was absolutely getting punked on the glass by Goga Batadze. I mean, Goga was taking this personal, like, oh, you used to be my vet. Let me show you what I'm made of. It just Goga was everywhere tonight. And I just felt like Miles looked 2 steps slow.
Yeah, he did. It definitely was not, the Turner type of performance that you just saw recently, where against the Knicks, where 26 points, 8 of 15, from the field. I felt like he was blocking shots, things like that. Like he just looked really good and like lethal from three against New York. Didn't really have that going. Like I mentioned, 8 points in the first, finishes the game with just 3 more points at 11. It's disappointing. 4 of 11 shooting. I felt like Goga had a great game. 2 rebounds for Turner. Two. When you're talking about that, he looked a little gassed on the glass. 2 rebounds for your center cannot happen. Especially the fact that Mathurin had 12 boards. Mathurin led the Pacers in rebounding. It's something that Carlisle was very complimentary of after the game, saying that he's really worked on that, and it's great to see. But 2 rebounds for Turner and 3 points in the final 3 quarters cannot happen. Simply can't. I just feel like this is that type of game that it really was winnable. But in the end, Indiana shot a season low, 38% from the field. They shot 10 of 30 from three. Let's just think about against the Knicks. There's a great stat that was thrown out there. 44 of Indiana's 46 three-pointers attempted were considered wide open threes against the Knicks. That did not come anywhere even close to happening against Orlando tonight when you took 16 less three-pointers, and obviously they went 10 of 30 from the field. So totally different style of play from what we saw from just a couple nights ago to today.
No, you're right. I mean, it was two totally different games, two totally different teams, and you felt that, right? It just felt like a totally different game. And I know the Pacers had 2 days off and they traveled to Orlando. Orlando was on the second night of a back-to-back. They had just beat Charlotte for the first in-season tournament game or the NBA Cup game for them, and they didn't have to play their guys a lot of heavy minutes, but that's a young Orlando team with a lot of depth. Like we just had Keith Smith on, right? He talked about how good Goga Batadze is and why the Magic, don't want to trade him and why he's kind of like this hot name. Well, it's like, yeah, if you look at the way he played tonight in the 28 minutes, he was really good. Obviously, Franz Wagner was their man, right? We know Franz Wagner is their guy, but I felt like the impact that Goga had with the starters and then coming in off the bench, I mean, Jonathan Isaac, the stat line, 11 rebounds, 8 points, 1 assist. I mean, I think he ended up having 3 blocks as well. He was a +0 for the game, but I felt like in that second half, he probably had to be like a +10 or 15 because when he was out there, he was really changing and impacting the game. Indiana really struggled with his, size and wingspan and what he can do when they have him playing that small ball 5. So I give them a lot of credit. We know how good Jonathan Isaac is, and we're not going to discredit that. But even Mo Wagner comes in and he hits 2 big threes. It's just like these guys were just really mucking it up, and I felt like their offensive rebound, like Goga Batadze had 6 offensive rebounds. You cannot let that happen. And De Silva had 4 of his 9 on the offensive glass. So when you give up 14 offensive rebounds, it's going to be hard because I felt like there was times the Pacers would get a stop, right? And then they couldn't secure the ball. And then here comes Orlando, whether they're kicking it out for an open 3 or, cleaning up the glass and getting a dunk. It was just like, man, the Pacers would get the initial stop, but they just could not secure the rebound. And in a 4-point game, 1 or 2 rebounds completely goes the other way. And that's the difference in a game. So, I'm not going to sit here and like crap on the Pacers for losing this game. It's a tough game. They've lost a lot of tough games here early on in the season by just a handful of possessions. But those rebounds, they'll come back to bite you in the butt every time. It's what we've seen with this team. In addition to, like you said, not getting Siakam the ball more when he is scoring at such a high clip.
No, it's true. I mean, look, Goga has had his way with the Pacers so far this year. I mean, tonight, yeah, 12 and 12, but last time against the Pacers, he also had a double double. I mean, he had 10 and 12. So he's been good. He had 3 blocks in that game. Like he obviously takes that matchup just a little bit more personally, like we spoke about before. But yeah, the Pacers in their starting lineup can't have Shepherd, Tyrese Haliburton, and Miles Turner combined for 6 rebounds total. That just simply cannot happen. And I feel like in a game like this, it's just I don't want to say that Indiana didn't get up for this game as much as they did against the Knicks, but I feel like it's easy to say that this is like that sandwiched game in the middle where you're playing the Knicks, you got Orlando, and then you got the in-season tournament against Miami, and I feel like Indiana probably took their foot off the gas just a little bit because we know how much this tournament meant to this team last year. Like that meant a lot. That was like Indiana's, it felt like the playoffs to them. And I feel like they probably did look a little bit past Orlando and onto Miami. But I do think that this is a Pacers team that consistently responds. They've struggled winning back-to-backs, though, back-to-back games.
Yeah, man, I don't know if I agree with you on the fact that they overlooked Orlando. I think Orlando's just a tough matchup. I mean, they couldn't to
Yeah.
me, this is not a game you can overlook because this is a team that you are gonna be fighting for in the standings. I mean, now Orlando's 7-6, you're 5-6, and you have 2 losses to them. So any tiebreaker happens, they're gonna be the home team advantage. So this to me is why you can't overlook these teams. And maybe you're right, maybe they did, but I don't think they did. I just think they just are a tough matchup for the Pacers. And without that big wing out there, let's just talk about it because Blue Sky has kind of taken over a little bit here. It's popping off. It's the new version of Twitter that's been around for a little bit,
I'm
and
going to
people
be
are
honest. I'm
slowly
not
starting to
familiar.
migrate over there. So yeah, so I downloaded Blue Sky. I'm not very active on there. I've tweeted a couple of things out there, mostly promotional podcast stuff. Have also I threw like a two or three tweets out there today, but I'll just say this: like to me, it's just like when I'm trying to think of I'm losing my train of thought here because I'm trying to remember what I was saying, but uh, I'm this is bad. I'm losing my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
You brought up Blue Sky randomly.
This is
I'm going to
bad.
be honest. I'm not even familiar. Like I've
I
heard the
know.
name. I have not logged
Okay.
on. Not familiar.
Uh, I am trying to remember what I was saying before this, and now I have completely lost my train of thought. But if it comes back to me, I will bring it up. But I'm just in the moment right now, everybody. So this is as real as it's going to get because we are basically live doing this. So anyway, but it's just like it's one of those things when you look at this Pacers team, like they cannot overlook. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. This is what I was gonna say. Okay, I remember now. Sorry, I'm coming back. Coming back. I'm getting old. Okay, I put out on Blue Sky said I think the Pacers should start Jarris Walker over Ben Shepherd. Okay, and the reason I said that is because I thought Jarris Walker had a career game against the Magic just a week ago, and I feel like he would be a better defensive matchup for Franz Wagner than Ben Shepherd, right? Or putting Pascal on him and putting Ben Shepherd on Jalen Suggs. And Ben Shepherd is a solid defender, but with no Neesmith and with no Nembhard, I think Franz Wagner is too big to throw a 6'6" guy on. I think this is where you need to put Jarris Walker on that guy. It would have been one thing if Shepard was actually guarding Suggs, but instead they had Mathurin on Suggs. So if you're already going to do that, you might as well just go bigger and let Jarris play the three, go big in that front court, right? And I just think that would have been a better lineup in terms of what they wanted to do because Jarris closed the game. And Jarris looked much better out there tonight than Ben Shepherd did, in my opinion, in those moments. And I want to just throw this out there because I know we're not going to praise Jarris Walker for everything tonight. But that outlet pass he had to Tyrese Haliburton to dunk it to make it a 2 point game, like
That
that
was
is what he
really
can do that
nice.
Ben Shepherd cannot do. And that is why he's so special. So I know it took me a long time to get here. I appreciate you guys being patient with me for finally getting my thoughts together. But that's what I was going to say. I put that out on Blue Sky. I didn't put it out on Twitter. So anyway, I thought Jarris Walker probably should have started tonight and got more minutes than Shepard.
Yeah, I think that's probably something they'll evaluate. They do have potentially 2 to 3 weeks to make a decision. I don't think that Ben Shepherd has a solidified starting job, so that's something that they can, definitely evaluate. That pass that you mentioned was definitely spectacular. That was great to see. I don't know if you also saw this on Twitter, but the Pacers had a promotional sweatshirt. The Indiana Pacers tweeted it out. Did you see who was in the five? I'm not sure if you got to see it or not. I'll just tell you who
You
it
know
was.
what? Someone did tag me in it, but I did not actually look at who is in the photo.
So you got Tyrese Haliburton, you got Pascal Siakam, you
Okay.
got Miles Turner, you got Aaron Nesmith, you got Benedict Mathurin. No Andrew Nembhard in the promotional sweater. I mean, someone's got to go. You don't can't. It's a starting five, I guess. But interesting that they have Neesmith over Nembhard. Not saying this means anything. This isn't like a leaked script, as they love to say, for like the Super Bowl or anything like that. But it was just something that I thought, huh, wow, Nembhard not in the starting lineup, like on a sweatshirt. That's interesting.
What are we doing? Why are you guys taking off Andrew Nembhard from the sweater, Pacer fans? I mean, or I should say Pacers team store. What are you doing? I mean, somebody's got to be left off. Why not just put all six on there? Like, why do you have to
You
only have
could.
five? It's a little bit ridiculous to me. Why cause arguments? Why do we have to go down this rabbit hole now? Why do I have to defend my guy Nembhard to Facci and the rest of Pacer Nation every single episode that we're on here? I mean, I get called everything that involves loving Nembhard from everybody and how bad he sucks. And I'm sick and tired of the slander. I don't think Nembhard deserves it. I think Nembhard, what he did last year in the playoffs was incredibly special and was a big difference in why the Pacers actually won those series. Like, do you guys forget the 5 freaking offensive rebounds he had against the Bucks?
The
In
game winner
game three
versus the
when Tyrese
Knicks.
hits the game winner? Come on. How are you going to just forget all that because you want Mathurin to start? I'm glad Mathurin's playing great. I'm happy Mathurin's starting. I'm glad to see the growth from Mathurin. But that doesn't mean we have to put down our guy, Andrew Nembhard. So, you know what, Facci, I'm not going to buy that sweater because I'm protesting that Andrew Nembhard's not in it. And I'm going to make my own Andrew Nembhard sweater and buy that one by myself and wear it on this podcast. Maybe not by the end of the year, but definitely by the end of the season. I'm getting an Andrew Nembhard sweatshirt and I'm going to wear it and I'm going to wear the heck out of it and rep it proud because Andrew Nembhard, to me, is still a dog. And he's going to be a difference maker for this team when he comes back. Mark my words. They missed his defense. I mean, what did he do last time he was here? He was the one guarding Franz. And he's only like 6'3" at the tallest, maybe 6'4", right? But it's like, that's like almost like 8 inches. And they're asking him to do that. It's just like, well, that's a big difference. Like, what are you doing, Carlisle? Like, sometimes you got the guys with size. Let them guard those guys. Siakam can't guard those guys anymore. He's a step slow. Like, we got to get Walker more minutes in this matchup because Walker is the X factor against Orlando. But Andrew Nembhard's also a big X factor in this series.
Oh, of course. I mean, look, yeah. First of all, I need you creating your own Andrew Nembhard sweatshirt. All right, I need you designing that and
Are you gonna
selling
buy one
that.
if I do?
I might, I might. I mean, hey, I've definitely been. I'm wearing Setting the Pace merch right now when we're recording this.
I
So
love it. It looks great on you. Me too.
absolutely. So there we go. We're representing right now. But yeah, I think this is definitely a game that Indiana could have
Helping him
used
in.
and Aaron Nesmith. They could have used Andrew Nembhard. I mean, just plenty of bodies. It would have been great if Obi Toppin stepped up a little bit more on the defensive end. Just little things like that. They just needed something off the bench, and I felt like tonight was just one of those games where they just didn't get any bench production. I believe actually in the second half, I think they only scored about 3 points off the bench. So there wasn't much to write home about. This is one of those games where I'm not very disappointed. I do agree with you. I think this is a tough matchup and neither team's healthy. Doesn't no excuses. But actually, Orlando is undefeated at home right now. They got something going on in Orlando, and I think that this is a team that you definitely have to say was not a fluke last year. They will be in the playoff picture, and honestly, I'm not talking playing. I think they will be probably a top 6 seed.
Well, that is exactly why you wanted to win this game because you don't want Orlando having home court in the playoffs because of how good they've been this season. So, great point on that. I think there's nothing else really to add to what we've talked about this game. I think it's one of those ones you wish you could have back. I think the Pelicans game is one you wish you could have back. The Sixers game is one you wish you could have back. And, if things go differently in those games, you're looking at a different record. But hey, you know what? They've had some big wins. Let's see what they do on Friday night. NBA Cup, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Miami Heat. It's going to be an awesome environment. The court looks absolutely fresh,
It does.
Facci. I'm sure you've seen it. got to see a little teaser, right, of the jerseys, but we haven't seen the official release yet from the Pacers social account. So be on the lookout for that. My guess would be Thursday. I think
Probably.
last year they released it on Tuesday, but I would assume it's Thursday when it comes out. So that's going to be exciting. And I think the Heat are a team that have been struggling as well. So it's a good opportunity to get right, get back to 500. Tyrese, there was a video the Pacers shared on their social media page that after the Pacers beat the Knicks, Tyrese said, "We aren't going back under 500. We got to keep this momentum going." And they lose to Orlando in a tough game. So I'm sure that's going to be the same message. You got to keep it at 500 or higher and keep building from that. But we got to close things out tonight with our player awards, Facci. So not a fun game to give out awards, but I do think that all three are deserving because we did have some clutch moments. We did have an MVP, and I do think we have a feisty Foster hustle player of the game. So where do you want to start?
MVP, I'm going to go with Siakam in this. Through three quarters, he had 23 points, finishes with 25. I felt like if they didn't go away from it in the fourth quarter, I felt like, he's the clear-cut MVP. But for me, that's my vote. What about you?
Yeah, I think Pascal Siakam has to be your Mel Daniels MVP of the game. And I think Benedict Mathurin has to be your clutch player of the game
Exactly.
because of what he did in that fourth quarter, really took over for the Pacers. And I think he put some pressure on them. He had a big three, had some nice drives to the basket, 8 and 9 from the free throw line. I mean, Mathurin is just continually showing what he can do on the offensive end, even against a team like Orlando that is very, defensive minded. I know Mathurin didn't have a great shooting night. I think it was 7 to 17 from the field, but still was able to find a way to get his points and not do it where he was forcing all the time.
12 of his 23 came in the fourth quarter, so I would definitely say that was pretty clutch. He was drawing some fouls late. I felt like he's definitely deserving. For the feisty Foster, this is always where I just never know if we're going to be on the same page because I think we can look at things differently. For this, I want to give it to Johnny Furphy. I felt like Furphy in the first half,
Yep.
was battling for buckets. It was great to see him with 7 points in the first half. Tough baskets too. Had a great reversal. He had an offensive rebound that he got an and one on a putback, and that was great to see. And then even draw some blood in this game. I mean, just really getting physical out there. So Johnny Furphy is going to take home the Feisty Foster Award for me.
Well, let's just put it out there too, Facci. This is the first time ever that we've had the same initials for the award. So we got Jeff Foster, Johnny Furphy. You got to give it to the young fella. I mean, he definitely deserves it. I mean, played a great first half in this game, and I thought he actually did okay when he came in the second half, but got his finger tore up pretty early on in that offensive rebound that he was fighting for. I think it might have been Anthony Black, might have been somebody else, but I mean, he was definitely like holding his finger up because the blood was just dripping out, and they didn't have any stoppage in the play to kind of stop it and clean it up. And so by the time they did, the Pacers called timeout. They fixed it up, and he was back on the bench for the rest of the game. So it really wasn't his fault, but I do like the way that he was hustling out there. Great cutter without the basketball, and I think that's going to be huge for the Pacers in the upcoming years. They have a lot of players at that position, right? So it's just a matter of will he get playing time, will he not? I don't know, but I do like what I'm seeing from Furphy so far. I mean, it's really not much. It's a small sample size. He's a young guy, but I'm glad you're in agreement with me because I definitely felt like he deserved our Feisty Foster player of.
Yeah, I definitely left encouraged. I really felt like, hey, this is a guy that Indiana can afford to bring along slowly, and I think it's going to benefit him. And tonight we saw flashes that says, hey, this kid's going to be good in this league. I think the idea of anyone who might be floating out, hey, well, what if you need a backup center? What about Furphy? I don't think so. I think that'd be a big mistake. So I think Indiana got themselves a good one with Johnny Furphy, and this was just really the start.
Yeah, no, it definitely is just a start for our guy Johnny Furphy. And Facci, I think this is a good time to wrap it up. No, not a win, but you got the NBA Cup coming up on Friday. Tomorrow night, I'll be joined by Pat Boylan. Does a great job as the radio sideline reporter for 107.5 The Fan for the Pacers coverage. And of course, is your play-by-play person for the Indiana Fever. So I'm definitely going to ask him about some Fever stuff at the end of that podcast. But we're going to be previewing this matchup against the Heat, get his thoughts on the Pacers. And I know you guys know Pat Boylan very well. He has a podcast as well with Jeremiah Johnson, the sideline guys, and I really enjoy hearing their thoughts on the Pacers and in general. So that's going to be a fun one. And the me and Facci will be back Friday after the NBA Cup game to recap that because, hey, it's an NBA Cup game. We don't want to miss it. The following week, I'll be in Milwaukee, so we'll have to determine how we're going to do that. Might be an audio only type thing, but we will definitely make it work. But Facci, anything else before we sign off?
No, I think this is a a tough loss, not a brutal loss, not a bad one. I'm not going to dwell on this one, but I am excited for this in-season tournament. Last year in-season tournament, Tyrese Haliburton led all players in scoring. It was a magical run for the Indiana Pacers. What could we do this year?
I think the bracket does set up pretty nicely for the Pacers if you look at who's in their group. You've got Detroit, Milwaukee, Toronto, and Miami. A lot of these teams aren't playing great basketball. I think Detroit might be your second best team in this bracket based on how they're playing right now. I mean, Miami's been up and down. Toronto's definitely been bad. Milwaukee, they've been struggling. I saw in the first quarter that Giannis was the only buck to score a field goal. So that's pretty telling. And, Miami, they've been up and down. So I think Indiana, they're one of those teams. Yeah, they're hurt. They don't have their roster at full strength, but when their starters are clicking, I think they're probably the most well-connected team in that group. So I feel pretty confident about their opportunity here to probably win their group.
Hey, it's a great opportunity. I'm really excited for it. The in-season tournament definitely has a different feel to it, and I think this is, dare I say, must-watch basketball because it's going to feel like a different game. It doesn't feel like a regular season game. They definitely accomplished that last year. I was very skeptical at first if it would be any different, but yeah, it absolutely was. And in-season tournament's been a blast.
It definitely has, Facci. So that's going to do it for us tonight on Setting the Pace, your go-to Pacers podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. And if you want to find us on social, we are at PacersPod STP on X. And Facci is at _FACCI. And I am at Alex Golden NBA, wherever you get your social media. So with that being said, if you're hoping the Pacers can get back on the winning track against the Miami Heat in the first cup game for them this season, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.